Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Mike, your physical therapist. And yes, I am your alternative healthcare career coach. Today, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Justin Moore, the APTA CEO. We'll be back in a few seconds, okay?
HelloNote is a truly therapist-friendly practice management solution with integrated EMR that will enhance workflow, efficiency, and patient care. HelloNote reduces error and allows you to spend more time with your patients. It comes integrated with billing. Claims are generated once a note is completed. You can bill with one click and a patient portal, which streamlines the patient intake process. Beautifully engineered and cloud-based for easy accessibility, the software works on all platforms. You can access patient records from anywhere. We also offer 24/7 support. HelloNote is the practice management solution that you're looking for.
Hello, my Facebook friends. If you're watching live, comment live. Watching on the replay, comment replay. Well, anyway, we have a special guest for tonight.
So I realized
Super special that we are actually interviewing the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Physical Therapy Association.
she ain't never talking lies. She just be.
Oh, anyway, let me go ahead and, of course, read and properly introduce our guest for tonight. Our guest for tonight is Dr. Justin Moore. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the American Physical Therapy Association. But prior to being the CEO, Dr. Moore served as APTA as the Executive Vice President. Gosh, man. From vice president to CEO, and he was also public affairs, and even before that, served in several government affairs positions that includes association lead lobbyist on Capitol Hill, right? I was just listening to another podcast. They were doing an interview with one of the lobbyists. So he received his doctor of physical therapy from Simmons College in Boston and master's degree of physical therapy from the University of Iowa. And his bachelor's, gosh, this guy is so smart.
Think I'm riding to see you now.
From University of Iowa, bachelor's in dietetics from Iowa State University. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Dr.
Yes, I tend to lose sight.
Justin
That's why
Moore.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the discussion this evening and engaging and looking for, I love the title of this podcast is I obviously am somebody who have had a little bit of an alternative career as a physical therapist. Going from
ask you that, sir.
Yeah.
You're the ultimate alternative career person, from being a PT and then going back to getting your master's and doctorate, and then you became a lobbyist, and you are truly the ultimate alternative career guy. You're still using your therapy degree and then applying in a different profession or different career, but you're still using the therapy degree. So, but we're gonna have to have that different conversation today. We have several questions from our little group, sir, about for APTA and of course for our profession. Let me pull that out in the Google Docs that we have here. So, but before I keep on going, sir, while I'm pulling this up, could you please tell us again who you are? What do you really do as a CEO of APTA, sir?
Yeah, well, I obviously have been in the CEO position for the last 6 years, and my daily job is really implementing the strategies and initiatives that are charged to us as the staff team from our board of directors, which are the elected physical therapists from around the country that determine the vision and priorities of the American Physical Therapy Association. So we're present working on efforts on Capitol Hill. We're working on growing the brand and reputation of physical therapists and demonstrating the value we provide the healthcare system, and really trying to make the career continue on the great path it's always been on, and doing that in an effective way. We also try to provide members great, service from professional development and education to conferences and meetings to other products and services that really hopefully will make their life easier as clinicians and be able to practice to the full extent of their education and training. So that's my daily job. But as you said, I'm a physical therapist by background, practiced for a short time before catching the public policy bug and spending a good portion of my career lobbying on behalf of the profession before Congress, commercial payers, and state legislatures.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for that. I know you do a lot more, but thank you for that short explanation of what you really do. I was just listening to another podcast. It's called the Private Practice Podcast,
Mhm.
and he was interviewing another lobbyist. And for some reason, there's a lot of literally politics that goes in lobbying. He said,
Mhm.
because you need to have money, you have to attend those fundraisers to get the attention of this. Lawmakers or policymakers, so we could have our voice, the therapy, physical therapy voice, to be heard in whatever you call that, the Congress.
Mhm.
So thank you for doing that, first of all. So but I'm assuming you saw all those messages I sent you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
So
happy to
can I
dig
ask
into
you
any more.
questions now for those people who are watching live? I mean, I know you're seeing or commenting on the live thing. If you got any question, post it there. But we do have other questions here that I sent to Dr. Moore prior to starting this podcast. So first question from Christy, sir. I would like to hear unrealistic productivity standards address and the ethical dilemmas they create for therapists. Basically, I think this is for nursing homes, I think.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
what
I mean,
does APTA have control over that? Or
we do not, but we also, as the Professional Association for Physical Therapists, believe that it is ultimately your license and your clinical decision making that should guide uh, the productivity that you achieve as a clinician. And so we recognize that employers need to have some frameworks and guidelines for their employees. But at the end of the day, as a licensed healthcare professional, you are ultimately accountable for the services you provide, and they need to be, medically reasonable and necessary, and they need to be according to your clinical judgment. And so productivities can't supersede that. So regardless of what they are, and regardless of the framework that those put, at the end of the day, it is your professional judgment and decision making that has to guide that treatment.
that's
APTA
true.
recognizes, by saying that, that's our overarching position. We recognize that employees are under pressure from their employers, and so our job is to help equip you with reasonable resources. So on the APTA website, there's, if you just go on and search productivity, our House of Delegates, which is the representative assembly of members, have really charged us to develop resources to help our clinicians manage these productivity pressures and do it in a way that is responsive to their employer, but also respectful of their clinical judgment and professionalism.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And like what Dr. Moore said, it all boils down and comes back down to us, professional. We are the professional. Yes, your employer can imply and say, I mean, I own a small little company. I can tell my therapist, hey, see 10 patients in an hour. I mean, it's it all boils down to you as a professional. And somebody posted already in the chat that her lawsuit have been very successful against 300 sub c. I mean, if you're gonna fight back, or not really fight back, you talk, hey, this is my license, it's not yours, because
Mhm.
companies can tell you what to do, but it's still your license ultimately. So Dr.
Yeah,
Moore is correct.
absolutely.
Thank you, sir, for sharing
You
that.
know, and I think one of the great things to note about the profession is the fact that we are licensed healthcare providers in all 50 states, and that is a huge source of recognition. But it's also what payers recognize as us being qualified to provide those services, because there's accountability to the public we serve, and it really is that accountability that you can hold the individual accountable for the care they're providing. So productivity is a tough issue, because every practice environment's slightly different too. So some people are seeing very complex patients, and other practices don't have a different patient population. So productivity has a lot of different factors that go into what is appropriate and what is reasonable based on your clinical expertise, from clinical specialists to entry professional, to also the patients that you serve, whether those are geriatric patients or pediatric patients. And really, how do you fit your practice model to be practicing to the highest point or highest degree of that license?
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, I like hearing that, practicing to the top of our license, because this is where APTA comes in. They are advocating for us, to practice at the top of our license. And at the same time, they're lobbying and telling all this lawmakers, hey, this is what a physical therapist does. help us. Okay, all right, let's go to the next question, sir.
Absolutely.
We got several. Samantha says here, any plans to lobby for therapy education CPT codes so they can document and bill for caregiver education? Something, if you know anything about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a payment team that is heavily engaged everything in the development and creation of CPT codes, which is that framework that really describes the services we provide. So that's the established infrastructure in the United States that really defines everything from therapeutic exercise to patient education. And so APTA is always at the table and with our representatives, making sure the CPT codes correctly defined or can be correctly utilized by physical therapists. And then we argue for and advocate for our use of those codes, and then that they're valued appropriately so that you get paid commiserate with what your expertise and skills are required to provide that service. And so we always want to expand the scope of what physical therapists can bill and what we can do. And because we do believe that we're probably still underserving the population and everything from clinical care to consultative services to patient education. And we can always, provide greater value to the healthcare system if we can practice to that full extent of our license and utilize the codes that will describe the services we provide in the most correct fashion. And so that CPT strategy is ongoing. And we have a staff team at APTA that's hired to do that work. And then APTA appoints a representative to that CPT panel and that RUC panel every year to make sure the physical therapist perspective is always heard. And those reps include physician reps, nursing reps, other non-physician providers such as occupational therapists, all at that table, really making sure those codes can be utilized across different professions and professions then have access to those.
Perfect. I like what you guys recently did. Not really approval, but including of the RTM code, the remote therapeutic monitoring codes, and I haven't been utilizing it yet. I'm just so confused with it right now. But hopefully someday, me and my therapist and our billers could figure it out and then use it, because there are a lot of benefits from it.
Yeah,
We're already doing it.
That is a great example and case study of how the whole process works. And so APTA was engaged in those for several years, making sure that those codes were developed and then that those codes transferred into recognition or values first. So they got valued and then recognition. And now we're seeing there's a lot of people that are far more expert in this field than I am that are really helping PTs understand those codes and be able to apply them to their practice in an effective way. So back to your original question, as we expand codes that are more in the consultant care management, patient education stage, we will go through the same process like we did with remote therapeutic monitoring and making sure that we have access to them and can utilize them. And then some of the experts, consultants and practice management experts will even take it from there and really go out and teach people how to best utilize those to their practice and to their patient population.
Perfect. Thank you very much for answering that question, sir. So, but I know you are a very busy person. We have all these questions. And by the way, for those people who have sent their questions and posted in our group, don't worry. I sent all your questions to Dr. Moore, and he's gonna come back. Do more, answer this and everything. If we lose the time, right? So the next question, sir, is from Nancy Sims. I would like to know if there's any pathway to follow to register when you are a foreign trained therapist from Africa. I'm from the Philippines. I did everything through FSBPT. So,
correct. And I'm not an expert in this process, but there are established pathways that really help a foreign trained physical therapist become licensed in the state in which they choose to practice. And the first part is going through the credentialing process. And there's an agency that does that. I believe it's FCCPT. I hope I have those initials right. The Foreign Credentialing I'm Commission on Physical Therapy. And that is an agency that you go to make sure that you have the education is appropriate. And then after that, there's a process, whether it's language, there's a language component at times, and then it makes you eligible to sit for the National Physical Therapy exam and become licensed in the state in which you choose to practice. we're always looking to make sure that process is appropriate and meets the standard to ensure that we have a competent and highly qualified workforce. But if you have questions, there are people and websites that we can give you the specific pathways and steps that help you go from trained in a foreign country to being able to practice here in the United States.
Perfect. Well, Nancy, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I also know her name is Jing Reuter. She helps people how to transition from other countries to here. I didn't had that when I was starting here, but now there's so much coaches out there and consultants that can guide you. Next question is from I gotta take off my eyeglasses, sir. Tiffany Davis. Are they doing anything to address or combat the decreasing reimbursement rates? What are their thoughts on increasing cost of tuition with the decreasing pay rates of therapists?
Yeah, it's a fabulous question. It is the number one priority. And the thing we're working on all the time is to ensure that physical therapists are paid at an appropriate level. The environment we're operating in is extremely difficult, as most practitioners know. And so there's a lot of pressures to reduce healthcare spending, and that generally translates to more reductions in pay to other providers. And we're seeing that across healthcare. The only provider group that is really seeing increases in payment in the current environment are primary care providers. So part of our strategy is to really advocate that physical therapy is primary. We're a primary health service, and we can help manage and do care management at a level that will reduce downstream expenses. So there's this constant battle of education and advocacy to show the value of physical therapy and to be able to show that it is a service that should be paid more as we reduce other services that are not having the outcomes that we have. We think the database or the data and evidence on the value of physical therapy is extremely strong. There's many sources out there that really show that if you invest in physical therapy, especially early, and help manage either a chronic condition or prevent or reduce the chronicity of a condition, that investment on the front end saves the healthcare system dollars. So that's the argument we're always doing. Specific to Medicare, there's a lot of challenges with that because that is essentially what we call a zero-sum game. And therefore, if you're increasing payments to one provider, it comes at the cost of another provider. And a few years back, and this is the major challenge we're dealing with in payment right now, a few years back, they decided, and we feel appropriately so, that they should increase the payment toward primary care providers. Well, when they did that came at the cost of all the medical specialties. And I believe it's over 30 specialties, including physical therapists, that have seen annual reductions in payment due to that increase in primary care. And so we're constantly battling that to try to get reprieve on that side, while we also, in a long term, are arguing for more investment in physical therapy and better payment for physical therapy as well. So it is the number one battle. It is the increasing fight that we're all fighting. And it is why there is really power in numbers. We're a large profession. By some estimates, from some estimates, the fifth or sixth largest by professional credential in the United States. And so if we can use that collective voice to advocate, we're going to be able to make a better case for an improved payment environment. The second part of your question is obviously costs of education have drastically increased. And that is a growing crisis in the field right now in physical therapy. And so when you have an increasing cost of education against a static or reducing payment environment, that creates unique challenges for people with high student loans or high costs as they enter practice. And so I think we do have a dual challenge of addressing the payment environment, but I also believe the cost of education has to be addressed. Otherwise, we are not stewarding this profession forward in an appropriate fashion. And I have, concerns that high cost of education is unsustainable and will continue to create greater and greater challenges for the profession moving forward.
So I know APTA doesn't have any control with it, but
now we're those programs. The programs of physical therapy and the universities that or institutions that house them are the ones who determine tuition. We're trying to do two things. We're trying first to be very transparent and help inform students to select programs that are going to return the value to them as clinicians. And so being transparency of the full cost physical therapy education. And we're trying to embed that in the application service right now, so that there is transparency to the student when they're selecting programs on the full cost of those programs. So there's a big education demand that we're trying to achieve on that front to make sure that we have an informed consumer base of physical therapy education. And we hope that will result in people selecting programs that are managing tuition at an appropriate level. We do also believe that we have to provide avenues for students to manage that student loan debt that they occur. And so we have a lot of aggressive initiatives to increase the eligibility for physical therapists for loan repayment. And a hallmark program of that is getting physical therapists eligible for the National Health Service Corps and being able to apply for some student loan forgiveness when they practice in an area of service or an area of need in the country. And right now, physical therapists aren't eligible for that program. And that's a fairly significant program of $50,000 to $60,000 in student loan repayment for 2 years of service in the National Health Service Corps. So that's a big objective for us, because our goal as a professional association is not only that we train a highly qualified workforce, but then they have rewarding careers and they stay in the profession. And what we're seeing now is some of these challenges are creating a lot of workforce challenges in the profession, of people leaving the profession or choosing, per your gut, other alternative pathways to try to have a more rewarding and fulfilling career in the profession.
So true. I like what you said. We need to be informed. I mean, the DPT is a doctoral degree, master's. I mean, initially it was a master's degree. These are adult kids, adult people. Okay, they know what they're getting into. Just like me coming here in the United States, I knew I'm going to pay immigration fees. I know I'm going to go back to zero when I move here in the United States. I know I'm going to be like a second, third class citizen. I know I'm not a citizen. I know I'm going to be denied a visa. So I was expecting all these challenges in life. And this is where I like about, I don't vote. I'm not a citizen here. So what I like about United States per se, the United States is helping people, helping kids, the students pay off some loans. And here's APTA trying to put you in the national whatever healthcare registry. And then you gotta be informed, and educate yourself. Is this really for me? Do I really like this profession? And that's what's happening right now. They come in with it's not blindfolded. You're signing that. It's 700 per unit. I did my doctorate degree. I paid out of pocket because I needed to prove to United States, to FCCPT, like what Dr. Moore was talking about. I need to prove to FCCPT and FSBPT that my education is equivalent to a U.S. doctorate degree. I had to go back. I can't get a loan because I'm not a U.S. citizen. So I had to be educated, and I needed to do it. Yes, I'm paying for it, but you just have to go above and beyond. You find that alternative career, find a side hustle, and go from there. If reimbursement are going down, you just can't expect, oh, okay, reimbursement is going down, I'm just not going to work. That's what I did. In the Philippines, therapists were getting paid a chicken and a flip-flop, and a tap in the shoulder. I just can't do that. What I did is like, okay, I'm going to find another alternative career, open up a little store, open up a business. And then, of course, I left the Philippines. I went here, and I'm okay. I'm satisfied with the 50, 60K salary, but come to realize, oh, I need to do more and be more. And this is where APTA comes in, ladies and gentlemen. I know, I mean, I'm not, I want you to join APTA, okay? But the goal here is to improve yourself, okay? Don't expect for the government to help you out. Don't expect APTA. Don't expect your neighbor, even your wife or your dad. Don't expect, ladies and gentlemen. Do it for yourself. Okay, let's go back to our question here. Sorry for my.
I think as you read that question, you highlighted a point that I think is really key and actually very exciting in the profession. The concept of side hustles. Physical therapists in your license give you a lot of ability to do some interesting things. And I think what's really exciting in the profession right now is people who are using their license to consult, to create niche practices, to provide other services, to do, create videos. There is a lot going on in the profession where people are really finding alternative ways to use their license to serve patients and to really help build their income. And, I think the unofficial motto of APTA should always be, how do we advance the economic opportunity for physical therapists? So expand the types of jobs that physical therapists can take, but not only grow their income potential over the life of their career. And there's starting to be, a body of knowledge in that space and work done around the economics of physical therapy and how do we really develop a career earning potential for the physical therapist. And I think that's exciting work. But I also think there's physical therapists that are coming out of PT school that are finding new ways to practice that are just really, really exciting and consult. And telehealth and digital is just one of the areas we're seeing rapid expansion in right now. And we're also seeing performance enhancement. We're seeing, community-based services. We're seeing, wellness gyms. PTs are really, I think what we're going to see in the next 10 years because of some of the economic pressures and some of the traditional forms of reimbursement reducing, you're going to see physical therapists embrace other revenue sources and other services to help fill that gap between traditional commercial-based payment and actually what their career income potential is. And PTs shouldn't have to rely just on one source of revenue. They should diversify just like any other good business to really capture revenue across the spectrum from reimbursed services to other services they can provide the community as well.
That's so true. I like that, sir. Coming from the CEO of the APTA, we have so much potential, ladies and gentlemen. We have so much potential. Our profession alone is so much potential. I've talked to a PA recently, physician assistant. He's like, "Oh, I was just talking to my PT friend, and I wish I wanted they wanted to be PT. My wife, who is a nurse, she wants to be a therapist, and here we are, therapists. Oh, we're stuck in this. We just have to get out of this comfort zone and look for all these alternative careers. And I know someone posted somewhere here that I shouldn't have to have a side hustle to survive. I'm all for diversifying income but trading time for money isn't the answer. That's true. You don't have to trade time for money. So what you need to do is find a business that will create income for you. So I'm going to share this to you, Dr. Moore. I bought recently, virtual reality headsets.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hired a non-therapist to implement this and go to different assisted living and retirement homes, and then also in our clinic to use it and utilize it. So that's using our skills and our knowledge, and then hiring someone to implement it for me. And that's the same concept when you're hiring a PTA, ladies and gentlemen. You're doing the evaluation, you're sending your PTA, you make a little bit out of the PTA.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with running a business. Okay, I'm going to stop there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Dr. Moore, let's go back to our questions. Oh, before I go to the next question, sir, let me put my eyeglass back on so I can see you. You mentioned about the primary care physical therapy. Somewhere in the question here and also connected, will we someday be able to order imaging? I still have to send them back to their PCP. Eventually, I know medication is going to be like a long game, because in Europe, physical therapists, they can prescribe at least pain medication or something. Will that eventually going to be our goal, since we have this doctorate degree already almost? I mean, everybody's almost has their DPT. So what do you think? I mean, the future of physical therapists, sir?
Yeah, practices will evolve. And I think you highlighted there's two real areas that I think give us some foresight into what will be increasing practice authorities for physical therapists. We always look to the military. They've always led the way in the United States, whether that is in direct access and the ability to practice without a referral, which that was not always the case. And the military in the 70s achieved that. And then the states came later. And so we saw that practice authority come out of the military and then be adopted across all 50 states. In the military, they currently are doing everything from musculoskeletal ultrasound and using imaging directly, or that form of technology directly. and you're seeing them be able to order x-rays and prescribe certain classes of medications. So we always look for the military in what's going on in that practice. Because of the advancements that we see in the military care, they generally roll into state regulated practice as well. The second thing we look to what's going to happen in practice authority is really what's going on in some of our international partner countries. And as you said, there's areas in the world where PTs do have the ability to prescribe certain medications or to perform immunizations and perform primary health services. And so I really think the primary care space is interesting for the profession because we're such a leader in the rehabilitation space. How do we balance this expertise we have as rehabilitation professionals and also begin to broaden our scope of practice to include primary health services? And I think that's going to take some time to filter out exactly where our best role is in healthcare as we continue to evolve as a profession. But we are starting to see that in countries. There are in some of our states. We do have some states, and Wisconsin led the way on imaging, is really allowing physical therapists the ability to refer to imaging services directly. And so that takes a lot of state strategy because sometimes it's in the PT Act that you have to change. And sometimes you have to look at the act of the other healthcare or the radiologists or other physician groups that they can accept a referral from a physical therapist. And so it's a technical issue at a state by state basis that you really need to investigate if you want to pursue initiatives to really expand the scope toward imaging services or other primary care services. I'd highly recommend, working with APTA and your state chapter. We have people on our staff that do this on a daily basis that help states really assess the current state of their Practice Act and what changes would be required to get that increasing authority for a physical therapist. So it's an exciting area, and an exciting area not only that we see expanding, but how do we balance our traditional care? Because we also here in the profession, we're losing part of our traditional area of practice too, as we evolve to other areas of practice. And so how do we balance to make sure that the physical therapist expertise is serving the patients at the right level, and we're providing the full degree of services that we can. I think there's huge potential in the primary health services. If somebody's in your clinic and needs, like we saw during the pandemic, if we could test for, have the authority to do COVID tests, or now that those can be or to provide immunizations, could we do that in our clinics to really be a better convenience and a qualified convenience for the patient?
I know. I mean, somebody posted here, in the comment section, another Facebook user, I was a mobile COVID tester for 6 months, made extra 1,500. Bam, there you go. And then, of course, this one too, how broad do we want to be in our services? Jack of all. I mean, same thing with physicians. Every physician have their own specialty. If that's going to come down to therapy too, physical therapy, there are like pediatric therapists, there are like, geriatric physical therapists, even dementia specialists in the physical therapy world. So yes, we can be jack of all trades and master of none, but individually, we need to have our own niche. You can't do it all, ladies and gentlemen.
And a good, there is a legal scope of practice of what physical therapists are qualified to provide. And we want that to be as broad as our education and training. But there's also a personal and clinician responsibility to only practice within your personal scope of practice. And so if you're I came up as a physical therapist in the pediatric space, worked with individuals with developmental disabilities. I needed to my personal scope of practice is not the same as the whole profession scope of practice. I needed to, stick into my level of expertise and where I was qualified to treat patients. And I would have at that time probably not been the best person. I would have been legally able to provide a manual manipulation. But because I wasn't doing that regularly, it was probably better that I would refer to a physical therapist that has expertise in manual therapy than to serve that patient myself. So there is a personal responsibility in physical therapists, even though it might be within your scope of practice, to potentially refer to another physical therapist who might be more qualified or better able to serve that patient. And so I think that balance between what is our professional scope of practice and what is your personal scope of practice is always really important to keep in mind. We're not saying all physical therapists should do the full scope of practice, because it is, as the person in the chat said, that is a broad scope of practice, and you need to be able to recognize where your expertise is in within that personal scope of practice.
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, give me a pediatric, I can take care of it. So give me a geriatric, Jerry Shout out to Jerry Physical Therapy. Check it out, Jackson, Tennessee.
Well, another key point is you said this and mentioned this either, we tend to beat ourselves up in the profession. And I think there's just so much opportunity for us to collaborate across the profession to better serve patients. Instead of, tearing the profession down, how do we, build our profession up and really help, refer to other physical therapists and help build a community across our physical therapists to best serve those patients.
So true. I mean, there are a lot of potential. At the same time, there's a lot of business out there. I mean, there are like 2 or 3 clinics in the area, in our clinic itself. There's Dynamics Physical Therapy, there's Sports Plus Physical Therapy. If I know I can't take care of this client, I refer them out. There's nothing wrong to refer out and share the business and giving it out. So you just, if you like what the poster said, jack of all trades, master of none. You can't be a master of none. You have to find that specific niche, ladies and gentlemen. In that way, you can be the best that you can be, and you move forward, and with your profession. Okay, let's go back to the questions here. This is very interesting here, Dr. Moore. This is from Stephanie. What about national union, like teachers have to help for advocate? Are different are different states, are they allowed to do this, or?
It's a great question, and the answer is it depends. Physical therapists are part of certain unions in the United States, in certain settings. And so, for example, when I practiced in a hospital at one point in my career, and we could join as physical therapists the nurses union, and so it's a little bit different. But the union issue is specifically. Let me start with, that's not APTA's role. Is we've just, our role is very clearly, and we were incorporated to do so, is to be the professional society of physical therapists. There are, there are associations that do serve both roles and are the professional society and the union. And we see that more in nursing than we do in any other healthcare profession. And we even see that internationally in physical therapy, where in certain countries, the professional society is also that labor union or that trade group that helps advance, national salaries and things of that nature due to national healthcare systems. So the long answer I'm sort of saying to this question is, it can be done, and there could be states that choose to organize that way. It's not something that this time is on APTA's agenda to diversify the services we're providing members or potential members, is to unionize. But there is, and we do not really engage in active efforts to get state-based areas to unionize as well. The way APTA would do that, if it ever became an issue, would be at our members' direction through our House of Delegates and policy that would guide us in that standpoint. Because our House of Delegates, which is a representative assembly of just under 500 members from all 50 states and all the sections, really guide the professional policies of APTA. And so we would wait for guidance from them before we would engage in an effort to either locally provide resources on how to start a union, or to really move forward in that standpoint. With all that said, unionization is a very political issue inside the profession and obviously outside the profession. And so, I do not have a personal, or we do not have a professional association position on whether that is an appropriate strategy for us to manage some of the challenges we're currently seeing.
Well, thank you for answering that, sir. I know, some people, they ask questions that they can find answer to it too. But before I go back to our questions here in my phone, there's this quick question by another Facebook user. Medicare pay cuts next year. Is this will affect job opportunities for PT? I mean, I know we're going to have pay cuts again next year. So, and
Yeah,
then but there
the
was
short
a
answer is
trade-off.
it will change the employment dynamic for physical therapists. So if pay cuts happen, there are salary pressures that'll start. So even if jobs are available, sometimes there'll be either static salaries or a reduction in salaries. And at times, people will not sort of add a new position or to expand. And so it does have a dynamic on, payment cuts will, have an impact on the job market from that standpoint. And so that's just a short answer. And so it's one of the reasons, of trying to keep a healthy work environment for physical therapists that we're constantly trying to attack that. And if you've talked to, if you've seen any of the podcasts or online, this is very active right now. There's legislation to try to, negate or diminish the cut on providers. And Congress is in session probably for another week. It's estimated they'll go out on the 21st or 22nd. And so our team is on the Hill every day, every evening, working with a coalition of providers to try to prevent that cut and to maintain, maintain the employment environment that is currently out there today.
And I think I saw that you guys are also working on that, lowering down that general supervision for PTAs.
Yeah,
So knock
it's
on wood.
it's an all hands on deck approach. We have to not only work on payment issues, we have to reduce the administrative burden and the restrictions on practice that you're facing as well, because those affect the cost of care. And so if you have strict requirements on how to partner with a physical therapist assist it, that limits your flexibility in practice, which obviously doesn't make you as efficient as you potentially could be when practicing to the full extent of your license. So we are always looking for ways to increase flexibility or reduce the administrative burden that adds to the cost of care while increasing payment so that there's more revenue coming into practices. And so reducing costs, increasing revenue, anything we can do to enhance those two things is something we're actively working on.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, sir. There's another question. Which setting will be affected the most by the pay cuts? This is probably, part B on outpatient,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen. So
yeah, the cut is actually very specific, and it's a great clarification there. It's Part B. One of the things we do know that happens is when there's a Part B cut, there's a lot of things, a lot of other payment systems that are impacted by Part B payment. So workers' comp would be an example. It's just one example where state workers' comp fee schedule could be based on the Medicare rate. So a cut to Medicare then would ripple to a cut to workers' comp rates. And so even though the cut is specific to Part B, it has an impact far beyond Part B. I don't know that we see any specific setting that bills Part B more affected by it. The two biggest settings where Part B billing occurs today are the skilled nursing facility and the outpatient physical therapy or the private practice, PTPPs. Those represent about 2/3 of total Part B billing. And then home health hospitals are the next two. And so I would guess just by the volume of those numbers, skilled nursing facilities and private practices are acutely impacted by a payment cut. So they're affected right in that first quarter with how it hits their practices right on day one on January 1st.
I'm going to just scratch my head there, right? And it's so hard to collect deductibles, right?
Correct.
So how are we fighting this, sir? I mean, are we, that's actually the next question here. And then related to, how do you plan on fighting the declining reimbursement, sir? I mean,
this is
to fight this, or is
yeah,
it
we do. It's our number one legislative priority, and we fight it on two major initiatives. First is we collaborate with the other providers that are being cut, and so OT, for example, would be the most we're all familiar with. Is we work with AOTA at a very high level. Their lobbyist and our lobbyists do a ton of visits together. And there's a partnership to make sure that, we work for rehab as well as we work for PT. So we work in coalitions, including with the American Medical Association and other physician specialties that are being cut to prevent the cut. And then we work very specifically for physical therapy too, to create that unique story of why physical therapy is unique and shouldn't be cut. So it is always that dual thing of, if we can keep a big group together, we have a better chance of having a macro impact. But we always are working to make this very specific PT case known. And that is it's very specific to that issue. The Part B cuts are very specific to a strategy that has to be done by Congress. There is a part of the strategy that's when it's at the regulatory agency or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That usually happens from the proposed rule to the final rule. And there's efforts where we can engage and provide comment letters and engage in that space. But the final rule came out at the first part of November. And once that final rule comes out, all of our activities have to be directed at Congress, because they're really the only ones with authority to be able to overturn that cut once it's in final rule. And they need to pass legislation to do that. And so right now we are on the clock, and we'll go until Congress adjourns for the year. There's always potential that we can see a reprieve or some diminishing of the cut before it hits on January 1, 2023. And if you need resources on that, to just do a plug, so Legislative Action Center on the APTA website. Get on that. It's really easy. It'll take you less than 3 minutes to write your member of Congress, and every voice matters. It is super easy, and believe me, every voice matters. If one office gets 3 or 4 emails from a PT, all of a sudden it's on their on their radar, and they're like, "Hey, if we don't change this, we're going to see reduced access to services to our seniors," and that's who votes. So if we can get that message across, we have a better chance. Last thing I'll say on that is, this is I would have to ask. I forget how many years in a row we've done this activity where we've been scheduled for a cut. We've gone back, tried to fight it on the regulatory side with CMS, and then gone to Congress and asked for reprieve. We've seen large cuts diminished fairly significant in past years. And so the last 2 years was very specifically, we've been able to reduce that cut by several percentage points and really help keep the practice environment as healthy as possible in this environment of reduced payments.
Well, thank you for answering that. And that is true, Ray Berardinelli. That is actually your question, Ray. Thank you for sending that question. Anyway, let's go back to another person here. This is actually true. APTA is really in a tough space. Clinicians don't see extra money to put into the APTA. Therefore, the PT PAC, so not enough money going into the lobbying. Then clinicians don't see changes they don't think they want. Therefore, they don't donate and renew their membership. It's a bad feedback loop. But here's the thing. If we don't renew or join or donate to the PT PAC, the Political Action Committee, who's going to do it? Are we just going to give up on our profession? I mean, our podcast is called Attractive Healthcare Career, yes, but I'm still a member. I still donate. We need to support our own profession. A lot of people will say, well, you cannot tell the fireplace to give you heat if you don't put the wood itself. Just like this water pump in the Philippines, I pump water. You just cannot pump the water. You have to prime it first, and then you can eventually pump water. Same thing with your heat. You put the wood, you fire up the wood, then you tell the wood, hey, give me some heat. And same thing what APTA is doing. We got to put our membership in. And speaking of membership, that's the next question here, sir. Cindy is asking, what can be done to make APTA membership fees more affordable to a typical clinician? I mean,
yeah, there's our board is having that conversation. APTA is a federated model, so when somebody pays membership dues to us, APTA gets a portion of those dues, and about $295 for a physical therapist. But then, because of the federated model, you're also required to join your state. So the cost of the clinician is more than $295. It is $295 plus your state fees, and then a lot join sections or academies, which is an additional fee. So the average PT pays, in general, between $500 and $600 and sometimes $700. If you're a PT in private practice in California, you're paying almost $1,000. So the cost is variable, and we need to have better strategies. So we're starting. The good news is APTA's national membership dues have not changed in the last decade. There's no plans to raise dues. at this point, because we do believe we need to build it's a tough payment environment. Raising dues at this point would not be productive on our members, and it would not be would just not be a smart move for us right now. So we have been committed to keeping our dues static, but there's now starting to have conversations about how do we show greater value to physical therapists in those membership dollars. So what can we provide you in services and membership beyond advocacy, beyond PR, and what are those tangible benefits you get for your contributions to APTA? And then are there areas where we can, look at other alternative approaches to membership? So should we move to, one example, and this is, do we provide a base level membership and that it's at a lower cost, but then if you want access to continuing education, you pay a little bit more and get free access to all the courses on the Learning Center. So right now we do not have a tiered model for membership, but there has been talk of, do we look at that? We are watching some other associations that we're familiar with are moving to tiered models and creating a base level membership, which is cheaper and more affordable, and then sort of a concierge or a plus membership as well. That might be all inclusive. You get professional liability insurance and free unlimited continuing ed for the APTA plus membership. But that's some ways people are attacking the membership. Membership challenges are not unique to APTA. A lot of associations coming out of the pandemic and just with the current healthcare environment are facing challenges with showing that value of membership to its membership, and how do you make that effective? We also need to make it easier. Just to be frank, we need to make it easier to join, and whether that's payment models. We just recently introduced a monthly payment option, which allows people to spread their dues out over overall 12 months. We're adding things that make it seamless. So how can you auto renew? How can you our RPTs deal with this in all other areas of the economy. So they need to be able to interact with their professional association in the same way. And whether that's similar to, your Disney Plus membership or your things of that nature, how do we keep people engaged from that standpoint? The last thing I'll say is what we know is people who find value in APTA find a way to engage. And usually that is not at the macro national level. And even though I run the National Association, the community across the APTA is really what its strength is. So people who have found value in APTA have really engaged in sections, academies, their state chapters, have formed groups, organic groups, and really built that collective spirit and association to really advance the profession. And then I think we hear overwhelmingly, they see that that's, that the price they pay, they're getting more valuable out of it, whether it's professional networking, whether it's learning, whether it's resources, whether it's advocacy. That's the challenge. We have to, get people to not only join APTA, but feel like they can shape APTA for the future through engagement. And it's not just a passive transactional relationship for us, but something that is their association that they're influencing and changing and really making a difference, whether it's on payment or whether it's on educational standards or whether it's on creating a new specialty. There's a ton of ways to really grow as a profession. And that's only going to be driven by a healthy, active membership across the board.
Funny you mentioned that. Go to your local association. All right. If you're not a member of APTA or AOTA or ASHA right now, go to your local association and just interact with them. And this is where the power of small group is. Even churches, they do this, ladies and gentlemen. Big churches, whatever church you go to, I'm a Christian, by the way. You go to big churches, the big church is good. Don't get me wrong. You listen to the pastor, amazing music, you praise and worship, blah, 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 blah. But the power of the churches are in the small groups, ladies and gentlemen. That's where the power is. I haven't been really active in the small group, the APTA Tennessee here, but I've been seeing all their pictures, ladies and gentlemen. They have power. The lady who was helping me, Bianca Simmons, Dr. Simmons, shout out to Bianca. She's so active. She's like, hey, Dr. Mike, could you, I want to do a fundraising for this certain group. and there's power. They're doing it. They're not big clinics. I mean, Bianca, she's like a single practitioner person. She goes to homes. She does home health, and at the same time, a small private practice. And there is power in the small groups. Just attend this the local APTA meeting. Attend. Now, if you want to join, go ahead, join. If not, obviously don't. It's not for you. It's not for you. But it's all about that small community, and you will see that change. It starts from us, ladies and gentlemen. It starts from us, not from the top, not from the government, not from APTA. It starts from us, our little own community. All right, Dr. Moore. I know we got 5 more minutes. I wish we could keep on going because there are so much questions here. Uh, Ray, again, he's got a question. Is it true that it's illegal for APTA to unionize all PT members? Is that true?
It's a great question, Ray, and it's APTA has a volunteer management structure. So I don't know if I can say it's legal or illegal. By the organizational structure, we've chosen a voluntary membership model. So ASHA is a little bit different. ASHA is both a professional association and a credentialing agency. So there is some tie between it looking like it's not an optional or voluntary membership because it's tied to their credentialing. And you see that in some professions. We do not have that. And there has been talk would there be, a way to make it membership more mandatory or make it a higher degree of likelihood and really connect it to whether it's, credentialing or something of that nature. And at this point, APTA has not chosen to take that path or pursue those options. And partially because, we feel the voluntary membership model is best. And we feel we need to earn your membership. We feel we need to be driven by our members. And we recognize that that's a challenge and that we at times don't have the market share we want to have and be able to represent the majority of physical therapists in the United States. But we believe that relationship between the professional society and its members is something that needs to be earned and a choice by those individuals to be part of us and part of the community that is seeking to advance the profession. So it's a fabulous question because at times in my day job, I would love to have what in the association space is called some golden handcuffs. But the adjective of their golden at the cost of the handcuffs is not something that I particularly support. I really believe it's our obligation and responsibility to earn your membership and do that within the challenges that we're facing to do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dr. Moore. I got one more before I let you go, okay? I know there's like hundreds of questions here and also here in the live video. Somebody said, yeah, she goes to church and that's what's happening now. But one more question, sir, before I let you go. Where did that go? How does the PTA address the PTAs? I can't read it. It's so small. Take off my eyeglasses. You see our age now, Dr. Moore, right?
Yeah. Did you notice that my readers are
supportive of PTA practitioners, and if they are, or how are they addressing the 15% reduction to PTA services? So,
yeah, well, I don't know if I heard the full question, but I think the theme of the question is what is APTA doing for the physical therapist assistant? If that's a general construct of it, is obviously the physical therapist assistant is an essential and important part of our profession. And APTA really just has three. We have multiple membership categories, but the three big ones are physical therapists, physical therapist assistants, and students. And so we're constantly looking at, just like we would across the profession, what are the programs and services that we need to advance the physical therapist assistant and their role in care delivery. And so we have care pathways, advanced proficiencies that we really seek on the education and special education and role of the physical therapist assistant. And we're also doing advocacy efforts. And one of the big issues we're working on right now is to really address what came down as the differential. And the question talked about this. A few years ago, Medicare decided that when a physical therapist is involved in care delivery, that should be paid a reduction of the fee schedule amount. And 15% was the amount that they say that should be reduced. So if a total, if a PTA is involved in, 100% of the care the physical therapist is providing that day and the billable services equal $100, the payment will only be $85 because of that physical therapist being involved. And so we don't agree with that. We believe that that is a policy that at the end of the day, we would hope we could overturn, but the likelihood of overturning it has always been great. So we've been attacking that issue to really look at what are other alternatives to reduce the impact that that has. One of the things that's come up is, can we change supervision and get a consistent general supervision across all settings? And would that add flexibility to accompany that reduction in payment? And so that's one of the efforts that we're seeing progress in, and that's been moving through Congress and is something we're trying to do a push for by the end of the year, so that we can diminish the impact that payment reduction or that payment differential has on the entirety of the physical therapy profession, but specifically the impacts it will have on a PTA and their employment opportunities. Because we know if that differential continues to be implemented, we're going to see challenges specific to the physical therapist assistant and what opportunities they have for employment in certain practice settings. And private practice, just to give an example, have very specific supervision requirements under Medicare. And if we can lighten that supervision requirement, will they use physical therapist assistants more readily in their practice is a potential.
There you go. There you go. So again, thank you very much, Dr. Moore. Appreciate you for coming over. I know you're busy. You got your family time there. Any last parting wisdom for our group? If you can encourage our team, our group here, and then so the challenges that you're encountering and how are you dealing
couple
with
things.
it?
Well, first, happy holidays to everyone that's on the phone, regardless of your which holidays you celebrate. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. But I think the first thing is be an ambassador of this profession. It is a fabulous profession, and if we can continue to build the story we tell and the services we provide, I think there's a great collective strength in promoting the physical therapy brand. That doesn't require you to be an APTA member. That just requires you to be the best clinician you can be, the best administrator you can be, and really show the value that you provide individuals and clinics and communities. The second thing I'll just add to part is I'm happy to join at any time. These your questions were incredibly informative, and it keeps me A, on my toes, and B, it keeps me informed on what's keeping clinicians up at night. And we recognize payment's a challenge. We recognize that it's not easy out there practicing in healthcare and in the physical therapy profession. So the better we understand your pain points, the better we are to design advocacy efforts and services to try to diminish those pain points. And then last, I wouldn't be doing my day job if I didn't encourage you to be part of this community. A couple of years ago, our board reframed our mission statement, and our mission statement for the 101 years we've existed as a profession has included the role and responsibility to advance the profession. But we added two concepts in 2018. That was to advance physical therapy, to impact the health of society. But to do that, we needed to build community. So I just encourage you to be part of your community locally, nationally, and help advance this profession that you've invested a great amount of your time, money, and expertise to be a part of. So, help us get a return on that investment that you've given us, and be part of your PT community. So thank you. I love being on this. And again, happy to follow up to questions we didn't get to tonight. Happy to coordinate with Mike. And if we need to join again in the new year, happy to join at any time. It's just great to be sort of interacting with colleagues. So
perfect. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Moore. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those people who are commenting. And I read it. We're reading it. I sent a screenshot on everything to Dr. Moore. He's reading it. They know all your concerns. It's really my pleasure, sir, to interview you tonight. I really appreciate that for coming over. But before I let you go, ladies and gentlemen, always remember the word FAST, F-A-S-T, letter F. Find people that will bring out the best in you, because you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with, ladies and gentlemen. Hang out with people who are complaining in life. Guess what? You're gonna be complaining. Hang out with people who are actually going to bring out the best in you. Guess what? You're gonna be best. Tonight I feel like I'm gonna be like Dr. Justin Moore will be like a lobbyist there, going to, whatever he's doing there. Hopefully, talk to, wear a nice coat and do they wear tie?
I usually
there?
don't.
Guess, they wear tie or whatever, and then, we're going to fight this ruling. Could remove the 15% cut, And then, so find people that will bring out the best in you. Okay. If you want to start your private practice, go to APTA, private practice section. You want to start your Jerryhab practice, go to my website, jerryhabjackson.com. Find those people who are actually you are wanting to do. For example, you want to be a utilization reviewer. Go talk to your utilization reviewer. Go ahead and get our class, How to Be a Utilization Reviewer. Find those people, ladies and gentlemen. You just can't complain. When you complain, you remain. Listen to that. When you complain, you remain. When you start praising, you get a raise. You want a raise? You want a raise in your salary? You want a raise in your life? You start praising. You praise yourself. Find people. I'm not talking about praising, oh, hallelujah. I'm talking about praising your profession instead of putting it down. All right. You got to praise that profession. All right. Okay. Next letter is letter A. You got to learn how to take action. All this stuff that we're doing, it's not going to do me good. It's not even going to do Dr. Moore good if you don't take action. All right. That's why it's called Political Action Committee. People need to take action. If we just keep on complaining and then about this situation, it's not going to. If I kept on complaining back home in the Philippines, I just sent money to one of my classmates back home in the Philippines because he there's no food for him. I sent money to my aunt who had a stroke because if I was complaining in life there back home, I'll be the same guy there. You got to take action. Take action. If you cannot do, your, for example, you can't do what Justin Moore is doing, go to the, to lobby, send your membership. I know some it's expensive, $200, $300, or $100 to the Political Action Committee. That's, $100. I know it's expensive to some, but it's like a meal that the whole family, I'm not asking you to donate $100 a week, when you go out and eat, but that's a year. Okay. Take action. If you want our profession to change, you be the change, go to your local association, AOTA, APTA, and then be active there. Okay. Next letter is letter S, share and subscribe. No, shoot for the moon, because if you keep shooting for the moon, you're going to miss it, but you're going to be landing with the stars. The more you shoot, ladies and gentlemen, the more you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Nobody's perfect. Even APTA, they're not perfect. They lobby everything. And Jessica posted something. Hey, all the stuff that we sent, the letters fell into deaf ears. No, it did not. It was just a failure. But the more failures that we get, the closer we get to our goals. And we learned this in school. When we're exercising, we want to exercise to the point of failure because that's how that muscle becomes stronger. And that's how APTA, and that's what they're doing. They're failing. Yes, it's not perfect. The system is not perfect. The government is not perfect. But the more failures that they get, the closer they go to reach their goal, that we can change this profession. They can change the reimbursement. It's not going to be perfect. There will always be cuts, All right. Last but not least is letter T, ladies and gentlemen, is teach it. Why? Because the more you teach it, the more you understand it. And this is where Justin Moore is coming. He's teaching us. He's educating us what APTA is doing. We just have to understand what the association is doing so we could understand how we can support it. Again, thank you very much, Justin Moore. Thank you very much for those people who are watching. I appreciate you. Be awesome, be great, be excellent. Thank you, Dr. Justin. Appreciate you. I'll see you around on our next episode, ladies and gentlemen.
HelloNote is a truly therapist-friendly practice management solution with integrated EMR that will enhance workflow, efficiency, and patient care. HelloNote reduces error and allows you to spend more time with your patients. It comes integrated with billing. Claims are generated once a note is completed. You can bill with one click and a patient portal, which streamlines the patient intake process. Beautifully engineered and cloud-based for easy accessibility, the software works on all platforms. You can access patient records from anywhere. We also offer 24/7 support. HelloNote is the practice management